Live. Once again, I've lost my notes. And we're live. This week, Samsung introduced us to its next generation foldables, next generation watches, and last generation earbuds. Samsung Unpacked was noteworthy in that it was not noteworthy. And just like we did back in 2020, we have brought back Android Authority to chat about Samsung Unpacked. Specifically, we've got Joe Hindy, who used to be the resident Samsung shill on the Android Authority podcast before he migrated over to LG, and that didn't go well. So, who are you shilling for these days, Joe? Are you back on the Samsung train?
Oh yeah, back to my old. What do you call it? Grounds.
All right, yep. Cool.
Note 20 Ultra all the way.
Nice. So that's fun. So were you disappointed by not getting a Note this year?
Yeah. I mean, obviously yes, because it's that time of year, right? It's August, and it's time to upgrade phones, right? So it's the time they announce the Note every year, right? So like my animal brain is used to the pattern. And so now that I can't engage in that pattern, I'm like, what am I going to do now? I guess I'll keep the phone a little longer. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed personally, but I kind of get it. I kind of understand why Samsung's going in the direction they're going in.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit, and this actually isn't going to come out. Well, we talked about it on the YouTube channel. But it's going to come out in the high quality version, actually on the same day that this is. But we talked about this with Cam Summerson over at Review Geek, talking about like how the Note and the kind of like the Ultra series of phones are basically kind of the same thing. The only difference is there's no garage for the S Pen. So we actually speculated that next year, or not speculated, but we discussed the possibility of doing like a Samsung Galaxy S22, S22 Plus, and then a Galaxy Note being the Ultra version of those phones. So there's still hope. We could still see something.
I really dig that idea, actually, because like the only reason why I don't buy the Ultra, like the S series Ultra phone, is because I know in 3 months I'm going to be trading it in for a Note, which is just an Ultra. It's an Ultra Plus One, and the one is the S Pen. So
it's the S Pen.
Yeah, no, so, hearing that out loud, that makes a lot of sense. I actually really enjoy that if Samsung started doing that.
It really does. And there's been a petition going around from Sam Mobile. I reported on it last week or 2 weeks ago, where they had like 35,000 signatures asking Samsung to. It's a change.org petition, so nothing will ever happen. But it had like 35,000 signatures asking Samsung to do a Note instead of an S22 or whatever. So we'll see. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
I signed that petition, by the way.
Oh, did you seriously?
Yes, I did.
That's hilarious.
Absolutely,
that's hilarious. So, all right, well, that's good to have you on then, because I didn't know anybody who actually had. So, and actually, every time I tried to load it, it would say like 0 signers, and it was like stuck in loading. It would never resolve for me. So, but anyway, it's fine. So we're here to talk about the Samsung Unpacked event that happened in August of 2021. And I guess I'm saying all of that for the people that are going to tune into this episode, 6 months down the line, and they have no idea what we're talking about. Because, I totally get a lot of those.
Hello, anyway, future people. Nice to meet you.
Yes, hello, people of the future. But anyway, so what we saw today was, kind of a weird order. We got the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 and Watch 4 Classic, followed by the Z Fold and the Z Flip, followed by the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2, which I thought was a weird order to introduce stuff, because I get the feeling a lot of people probably tuned out after the Z Flip and the Z Fold. In fact, probably after the Z Fold, probably half the people were kind of tuned out for the Z Flip. But anyway, so we got those things in that order. So that's the order that I guess makes the most sense to talk about them. But before we get to that, I just wanted to kind of get your overall impressions of the event, because you watched it and I watched it. I watched a replay of it because when it came on, of course, I was dropping off my son at school. so I wasn't able to watch it live, but I watched it earlier today. And yeah, so like, what were some of your takeaways from the presentation at large?
All right, so like I'm still not used to the idea that they don't do these things with crowds anymore, right? Like
Mm,
we're in a pandemic world, obviously it's a bad idea to pack a ton of people into an auditorium with an extremely infectious disease roaming the landscape.
hmm.
So I was not prepared for them to do a stage show, um, but have no audience. But I think they did it pretty good. It felt like a tech event to me, right? They had a bunch of flashy lights. They had the person standing there, and then they had the big like graphic in the middle that showed whatever the person that was standing there was talking about. Very Google
Yeah.
I/O-ish. Um, I love the musical number at the end, however cringy and terrible it was. Um,
Okay. I have a slightly different opinion of it, but okay.
well, I love the movie Escape from LA specifically because it's bad.
Okay. Well,
Um,
sure. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same emotion that I had when I was watching it was, oh, this
Okay.
is Escape from LA bad, and I love it. It's so
Hmm.
cringe.
So, in other words, it was so bad it actually started to skew back towards good a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, those movies you have those like scenes where you want to bury your head in the sand because you're embarrassed for the audience. I
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
those moments purely entertaining. So when
Okay.
everyone else
All
was
right.
like, "What's up with this cringy musical number?" I was like, "Yes, come on! I hope it goes on for another 5 minutes. Put the dude back in the bear suit, make him dance."
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That was just like kind of so out of left field for me. I was just kind of like, what? Okay. So like, I didn't really necessarily dislike it. I didn't really like it, but okay, I'm good with it. So anyway, so like this for me was, it may very well have been the Samsung event that cured me of ever watching a Samsung event ever again. Cause like, you have to understand, like I hang out with a lot of people that don't really watch these presentations anymore. Like they'll know that the presentation is happening, they'll post their reviews of it, and then they'll go and read the blog roundups and stuff like that later on. And I'm kind of leaning more towards that camp after this particular thing, just because the part of the event that I did catch yesterday after getting home from dropping off my son was the part with the buds, which we will definitely talk about. But like, I just got so sick of hearing the music you care about, the people you care about. The I'm just like, you know what?
The
You don't
three
know what I care about.
the
You don't
3
care
a.m.
about it.
the 3 a.m. infomercial crap, right?
Yeah, that was exactly it. And it was just, and like, when I went back and watched the whole presentation today, it was all filled with that. Like, we're building this for you. And it's just like, you're building this so you can sell phones. Come on. Like, and so like, I get it where they're coming from. And this is like, all the PR people are getting together and like throwing note cards onto a table and they're like building the presentation based on that. But it was just a bit too, I don't want to use the word cringy, but it was just too,
Sterile.
it was pretty sterile. It was like,
It was
yeah, I
sterile.
mean, I don't even think sterile is exactly the word that I'm looking for, but yeah, it was just a little bit too, I don't know, like cheesy, maybe, I guess. And then like, Samsung seems to be doing this thing where like people are talking to the camera and they're having their conversation. The people on the high quality video can't see this, but I'm looking off into the distance while I say my lines, and like every single presenter in the Samsung presentation did this for 25% of their dialogue, and I don't know why, but anyway. It
Yeah,
was
no,
just,
dude. I noticed that. It was like, why are they being so cinematic with it? It's like they had the camera that was right here in the front, and then like the
mm-hmm,
camera that was like the side that was like facing this way. Then they had another one over on this side that was like facing this way, and they would just
mm-hmm,
switch between the three of them. That's like, I think that was their way of trying to make it dynamic and fun because they didn't have an audience to play off of, right?
right,
Because
Right.
in my head when I was watching, like these are the scenes where they would pan over the audience to get the audience reaction, and they can't do that because the auditorium is empty wherever the hell they
Because
are.
there's
It's
no
completely empty.
audience.
Yeah, there's no audience, so like they got to fill that space somehow, right? And like we do it as tech reviewers also, right? When you see B-roll and like we're talking about a thing we can't really show on the camera, so we just show you a nice beautiful pan shot of like the back of the phone or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's that same instinct, but it did come off as kind of a funky, like
Yeah.
it's like, are we watching like this person talk behind the scenes? It would have been hilarious if you could see the actual camera, like that was
It
pointing at them, the one that they were actually talking to from
It
like the
kind of
side.
reminded me of the Weird Al video for Beverly Hillbillies, where he's playing the song and they keep switching camera views, and he's like looking for the camera, and like when he finally finds it, he like grabs onto it and holds it in front of. You have to be a super Weird Al nerd in order to get that joke, but still, I'm running with it. But anyway, so like overall, I thought the presentation was fine. It was just like it was just a bit too cheesy for me, and I think I might be done watching Samsung presentations. Like Apple and Google, still okay with them. OnePlus, but like Apple and Google, I'm still okay with those presentations because they have a real flair for the presentation, especially when there's no audience, especially when they don't have to pander. But and then like,
did you see all the
oh,
OnePlus? Sorry, minor digression. Did you see all the OnePlus tweets like the day of?
I was vaguely aware that they existed, but I didn't really see them. I saw that they did kind of like a fake fold thing, and like their phones were half off today or something like that, or something like. I was tangentially aware that they existed, but I didn't really pay attention to them.
Yeah, people were complaining about it on the tweet. And then Peter Lau like responded to one of them like, "This is a joke, you a-holes! Like, get out of here!" I was like, man, I felt for that guy so much in that moment, like just trying to be disruptive on Twitter, and then like everyone's like, "Stop being disruptive on Twitter." It's Twitter,
right?
Its whole purpose in society is to be disruptive.
That's his mission statement. But all right, so let's dive into some of the devices that we saw. And we're going to start off with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 and the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. And I am going to screw up those names several times, not only during this broadcast, but probably in the future as well. So just audience, so you know, I'm going to screw these up. So like the Watch 4 is the cheaper one. The Watch 4 Classic is the more expensive one, and I believe the main difference between the two is that the Watch 4 Classic has a rotating bezel and different sizes. So,
from what I understand, the Watch 4, the regular Watch 4, is the more active person
focused
variant. Yeah, the one that you replace your Fitbit with.
Gotcha.
Right? Whereas the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic is the one that you would replace your Galaxy Watch 3 with, right? Like if you want watchy watch, I want to watchy watch, you go with the Classic. But if you want like the fitness tracker that also runs Android Wear OS and is a Samsung Galaxy Watch, you go with the regular 4. Based on the coverage that I've seen so far and the images and the way they were talking about it in the presentation, that's the way it felt to me.
Okay. Yeah, and there's definitely like a difference in the build materials that are going into it, and like a slightly fancier look to the Watch Classic. Like the Watch 4, I would call it like the Watch 4 is kind of like vanilla, and like the Watch 4 Classic is kind of like the cookies and cream version of the watch. So it just it looks like it has a place underneath a suit coat. You know, as opposed to like you were saying, like the Watch 4 is like more for like the runners and for the exercise people. I've never met any, but I assume that's what they look like.
Also, the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic is because they both have two sizes, right? They have like, I know that it's not like this anymore, but I swear to God, it's the his and hers sizes.
Yeah,
The his sizes are both sizes are 2 millimeters larger on the Classic than they are on the Watch 4. So it is actually a physically larger device.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and if I remember correctly, though, I think it's the same size screen. No, it's not. No, it's not. I thought I heard it is.
1.36 inches on the big boys and 1.19 inches on the small boys.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then the extra the extra millimeters probably make up for like the bezel, like I was talking about the Mr. Fancy bezels. Now these are going to be have Exynos processors, which I was kind of hoping we might see something from with the new Qualcomm processors that they announced. Was it a week ago or so, something like that? Qualcomm announced that they were going to do like I believe it was called the 5100 Snapdragon 5100, something to that effect. I'm completely making stuff up at this point, but these are going to be Exynos processors built on a 5 nanometer process, which is still good. 1.5 gigs of RAM, 16 gigabytes of onboard storage. And then they're talking about the new CPU is going to have a 20% increase in CPU performance, which thank God, because watch silicon is not good. But yeah, so I mean, and then what they said something about battery life, and I don't remember. Did they say 40 hours? Was it? It was an odd number. It was like not 2 days. It was not one. I want to say it was 40 hours.
It was 40 hours of continuous use. So
Okay.
like ostensibly based on what I've heard, I'm not a Samsung rep, right? I mean, I know I'm a shill and I'm a fanboy, but I'm not a rep.
Right.
So you
Right.
probably have to ask them directly. But the way the verbiage sounded, it was like 40 hours of use, but obviously you're going to get a few days out of it since you're not going to be using the watch constantly.
That's fair. That's fair. So
that's the assumption I made. I made no promises.
So like, and then they also took a little bit more time to talk about the new version of Wear OS. What was the official name that they called it? Wear OS powered by Samsung, I believe it was. It was a much too long name. Definitely not catchy enough for a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
But it seemed like, I don't know. It seemed largely similar to what Tizen was. The big thing that seemed to diverge from anything that Wear OS or that Tizen has done is that, okay, I'm going to just say it, the Apple Watch icon grid, that with the multiple rows of icons that are like a hex pattern. Like, I'm still not convinced that I like that, but I kind of liked it when I first saw it on the Apple Watch, and then I saw people like panning the hell out of it, saying it was like terrible and disorganized. So like, I think I'm kind of back on the train. Like, I think I kind of like that idea of a grid of icons, as long as you know what all the icons are. Because that's the big caveat. If you have a bunch of iconography that you don't know what it means, then that's going to be a problem. But anyway,
yep.
So did you have any thoughts about the new Wear OS powered by Samsung?
I'm for it. I don't think this is the first one. Someone told me yesterday that Oppo had one that had like an OEM skin over top of it. But I am 100% pro OEM skin on Wear OS. It's worked out well for Android so far because it gives Google an endless supply of ideas that they're allowed to rip off of because it's on products that they helped make.
True.
So like I'm hoping that like with Samsung coming in to help out, I believe Oppo too. I'm not 100% certain on Oppo. I didn't do any research on that before talking about this at all.
Right. Well, it's a Samsung event, not an Oppo.
Yeah.
Event,
No, I'm for it, man. Like I'm 100% for it. I think it looks nice. Like you got the 40 watch faces out of the gate. It allows you to because like it's a Wear OS device, right? And so you wouldn't assume that like it would work any better with Galaxy devices than it does with other devices, but it still does because it's got that one. It's called One UI Watch, by the way. That's the official name. They didn't say it during the presentation, which kind of makes me mad a little bit because I sounded like an idiot in the video I made because of it. But yeah, I mean like. It works with Samsung devices just like all Galaxy watches do, just like Tizen Galaxy watches do. So like if you own a Galaxy device and you have a Galaxy watch and you want the next Galaxy watch to work like the last one did, it still does.
Yeah.
But you also get the Play Store. Who hates that? Right. And like if you don't have a Samsung watch and you can't do like the little itty bitty tiny things that they added on top of it, like the automatic audio switching or whatever for the Galaxy Buds, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Then you can just ignore it and it's like it's not even there. So like I don't know, like I don't see a downside to these. Like they're not even that expensive.
Well, right. And although I'm a little irritated because I actually just got the Watch 3 earlier this year. So, although I guess it was back in like, shoot, when did the Ultra came out? It was like January, late February, maybe. Or no, did I get the shoot? I don't even remember when I got the watch. Anyway, it was like somewhere between January and March. But anyway,
It was cold outside.
it was cold. That's I can confirm it was cold. But yeah, it's not that expensive. I would probably go with the Watch 4 before the Watch 4 Classic, I think, just because I don't need like the fanciness that comes with the Classic, and I'm cheap. So, there's that. But I doubt I'm probably not going to upgrade this one. I will probably wait until the next generation, or maybe see if Mobvoi comes out with a new Tick watch running this OS. Maybe I'll do something like that. But one thing that I wanted to talk about briefly were the new health features that they brought, including the BIA sensor, which tells you what your body is made up of. So like you touch the two buttons and wait 15 seconds, and it's going to body composition. That's the word I'm looking for. Your body composition metrics, which basically just tells you like how much muscle, how much fat you have. I'm not sure how a watch is going to do that. They had doctors and they kind of explained how it works with like electrical pulses and stuff. But they also did like a sleep quality thing with like your snoring, and like your watch will record your snoring and tell you, dude, you snore way too much. I still don't know how a watch is going to tell whether that's my snoring or my wife's snoring. But anyway,
I mean, they have voice recognition now for like the assistants and stuff. So I'm sure it's probably one of those things where it's like train your snore. Maybe they'll train your snore feature, right? And make you snore into it on purpose.
There you go.
I have no idea, but I assume it can't be that difficult. It's gonna be like a proximity kind of thing too.
Yeah, hit the button and just like yeah. But how are you gonna know if it's gonna be like a deep throated snore? Or maybe it's just one of those, like one of those, or falling asleep on the couch with your mouth open type of snores. You never know. There's a whole new world of snores just waiting for you with the Samsung Watch 4. So anyway, I don't need a watch to tell me that my body is mostly fat, so that's good to know.
Make the same joke, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, but it applies to me so much more than it does to you. But
don't let these curly shoulders fool you. I'm over 200 pounds.
Oh wow! All right, well then you need to get on the bike. So, all right. Anyway, we've talked more about the watches than I think we probably planned on it. So let's move on to the Foldy boys. And we had the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and the Galaxy Z Flip 3. And of the two, I think I'm a little more intrigued by the Flip, I gotta say. Like, I had the Fold for a couple of months. I had the Fold 2, obviously, for a couple of months. And, I finished off my review of it saying that, it's a great phone and I can't wait to return it. And I did. But now I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious about what that Z Flip life is like. So, although arguably the event today focused more on the Z Fold, but if you had to pick, which one would get your money?
You see, I'm in both camps, like at the same time, because like I was on Twitter while the event was going on, so I was like paying attention to what other people were saying, and I feel like Samsung did a really good job of like doing enough stuff differently with each phone to like pique the interests of people who might not have been interested in that phone at the beginning of the day, right? So like the Galaxy Fold 3, nowhere on my radar. We put S Pen in it, and this is your note now. Damn it.
Oh, well then, okay.
And then they took the the Z Flip, and now it's under $1,000, and like now people are like, $1,000 for, and it's the Snapdragon 888, right? These are flagship specs, right? It's not like the Moto Z Flip where it was like it was a 5G, but like what is it? Power. The processors don't take up as much power, so they're not as strong.
Right.
That's
legit.
Like, it's a flagship phone, man. It's a flagship phone with flagship specs, a flagship camera, a flagship screen for $1,000.
Maybe not the camera, but
well, I've never used the camera.
Right.
But based on what I've heard, it's the same camera systems that they used last year, and apparently it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like amazing, which
Yeah.
describes all Samsung cameras. So it's like, thank you for being as vague as humanly possible. Give me no idea
Right.
what I'm talking about. But like it's one of those things where like if they had released a Galaxy Note, like a regular old flat ass Galaxy Note for $1,000, people would be excited about it. But now they're putting this foldable technology, right? This brand new, fancy, cool thing, and they're making it like less expensive. Like you can go to T-Mobile right now and get the Note 20 Ultra for $1,100, $1,200. Like it's still more expensive somehow. Um, so I feel like the Galaxy Fold was supposed to be impressive in a way that made people not upset that there wasn't a Note this year. But I feel
Okay.
like the Flip was designed and priced in such a way to be impressive to everybody. And I think Samsung hit both notes, pun intended.
I think they're close, definitely. Now, the one reservation that I have about the Flip, like I agree with you in principle. This is flagship phone, flagship specs, fairly small battery, so keep that in mind. It's only a 3,300 milliamp hour battery. But the same, flagship size screen, and it flips shut, and it's a FHD plus screen, but it has 120 hertz, which is good. But the thing that gives me pause is the camera setup on the outside, because I did a review of the Samsung Galaxy Fold 2, Z Fold 2, and I did a camera breakdown of that, and I found the camera to be, considering it was a $2,000 phone, fairly substandard. It was okay, broad daylight, blah blah blah, the usual stuff. But there were differences in between, the color tuning of the lenses. Low light performance was awful, and so that gives me pause for the Z Flip, because I'm a camera guy. I need to be able to flip out my phone and take pictures of my kids, or take pictures of whatever, and have it coming out being good. And I don't have that confidence with these setups, because they're largely the same as last year. Everything else is upgraded, and the fact that it's under $1,000 is amazing. I love that, but the camera gives me pause. So, to be perfectly honest.
Understandably, I can totally see where you're coming from. If it was that kind of weird, because it is the exact same as far as I've been told by our reviewer Eric Zeman, it's the same hardware as last year. But he did say that they tweaked stuff, according to the press release, the little reviewer stuff that they give the reviewers. They did tweak the cameras, the software and the stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
the processing and whatnot,
that stuff like that. Because I mean, it's the same problem that OnePlus and LG and other OEMs have had in the sub $1,000 flagship category, where it's oh yeah, their cameras are great in highlight, but in low light, they kind of could use some work. And for whether or not it's going to work out okay, it worked out great for OnePlus, not so much for LG. But I think that the Flip, I think that the novelty of it, the whole foldable screen thing hasn't worn off by a long shot. If anything, it's more hype than ever because it's under $1,000.
Understood. And I suppose in my case, I could just carry around the Ultra as a second phone, but that kind of defeats the purpose of carrying around the Flip, because the Flip is supposed to be nice and small and compact. And it seemed like, at least this year, it was largely an iterative update, and the stuff that they showed off for the Z Flip was a lot of the same from last year. They had the thing where the camera stands up on its own. I don't remember what they called it, but the
flex mode panel.
Flex mode. There you go. So they had that. It seemed like they built in on the software side a little bit more multitasking into that than they had in the original Z Flip. See, I never used the Z Flip, so I'm kind of at a disadvantage in this conversation. So, but it seemed like with the Fold, I don't know. It just seemed like there were a lot more updates to it. You've got the underscreen camera now, and you've got I want to say the inside screen is the same size, but it's 120 hertz now, and the cover screen, which the one thing that they said during during the presentation was people use the cover display just as much as the inside screen. Duh. But it
Why would you
seems
open up the
like,
inside screen that often? Holy cow!
right? I mean, well, but anyway, where I was going with that, it just seemed like that the Fold was a little bit more. You know what this is? This is very much like the S21 launch that we had earlier this year, where it was kind of like Samsung course. It was a little bit more of a course correction rather than it was like a new generation of phones. Because like they added a few upgrades, but mainly I think the story for these two phones was look at the price. It's not $2,000 anymore. Now it's like what, $1,700. It's not $1,400 anymore. Now it's Now it's $1,000. And they still managed to tack on extra stuff there, which is good. But at the same time, like neither one of them were like significantly better than the previous generation until you'd start talking about that S Pen. Then that kind of changes again. And water resistant. You know what? I guess I'm just stupid. I guess I just don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Because, like, they did add S Pen support to the Fold. They did add water resistance to both phones, which is kind of impressive. I mean, considering what they are. Still not dust resistant. I'm sorry?
World's first.
World's first, of course. I mean, and of course you can't. Dust resistance is light years harder, especially for that particular mechanism. But still, adding water resistance was kind of a big deal. But like overall, I think these were more like kind of iterative updates over the last generation, but they also brought the price down, which makes them pretty significant.
Yeah, I'm of two minds of it. I don't know which one is right, but I feel because the Fold is twice as expensive, right? And it's also replacing the Note, and so I feel like it is probably not accurate in the slightest, but what it felt like to me was that Samsung was trying to talk up the Fold a little bit more because they realized the gap that they were trying to fill with it, right? Because it's not like the Galaxy Fold isn't just it's the really cool, off-the-wall, foldable, brand new weird thing that Samsung's been doing. This is the Galaxy Note now, for all intents and purposes. So they got to fill that void. They got to convince people to get rid of their Note 20 Ultras. They got to convince people like me to drop what we know and go with this new thing on top of not giving us a new version of our old thing. So, and then, on top of that, I mean, it's twice as expensive, right? I mean, like they probably didn't want to sit there for 20 minutes and talk about how many corners they had to cut to get the Z Flip under $1,000. Like, oh yeah, we could have put the hiding camera, whatever, under display camera on the Z Flip, but then it would have been like a $1,200 phone, and
right,
it's like, so instead it's like they talk about the positives. That's what they're supposed to do. This is an advertising campaign, basically.
Yeah.
But I totally I get it, and a lot of the announcements, like the water resistance, was like a dual announcement at once. Like they talked about it really big on the Fold, and you look at the graphics in the presentation, right, and it shows like all the graphics are the Fold.
Yeah.
Right? And then later on, like 20 minutes later, and it's like, oh yeah, and the Z Flip, right? It's like a graphic they just splashed up on the screen, pun intended, for like a half a second, right? And it showed the Fold and the Z Flip. It's like both of these are water resistant. It's like, oh, why didn't you say that the first time, Samsung? Right? And it's a lot of those things where I feel like they kind of hit a few of the enhancements that both of them had behind the fact that they were more proud that they did it in the Fold. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes total sense. And, I just kind of realized, like, while you were talking that, like, I'm figuring out in real time whether or not these phones are significant upgrades or not. So the audience is being treated to me trying to work stuff out in real time. So, normally I'm scripted. And so this is a little bit of a different perspective. And it's also fairly fresh. I mean, like the announcement itself was 18, math is hard, 36 hours ago, and I just watched it less than 12 hours ago, so it's like I'm still kind of processing this as we go. But overall, I mean, I would say just to kind of bullet point it, I would say I'm really impressed with the fact that they have water resistance. I'm impressed with the fact that the Fold can now seemingly take an S Pen, even though they had to redesign the S Pen in order to do that. Like they had to like put some stuff into the S Pen in order to make sure it worked. And don't use any other S Pen because you will still mess this phone up. But anyway, so I'm impressed with those things. I'm impressed with the price coming down. The underscreen camera, from what I've seen, actually looks pretty good. Like they, was it ZTE had the first underscreen camera, or was it Oppo? Somebody had the first underscreen camera, and it kind of looked like butt. Um, but this one actually seems to be pretty good based on some of the samples that I've seen. On the downside, it's the same camera setup as last year, which my review said was not all that great on the Fold. Probably about the same on the Flip, which isn't to say you can't take good pictures, but they're not gonna. Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff seemed to be a little bit more iterative, which is kind of weird that we're saying the word iterative when talking about folding phones. But here we are. It's been a couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I dig the 120 refresh rate. I guess some people like that. The only phone, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the podcast, Joe, but the only phone with 120 hertz refresh rate that I've actually been able to see and like say, oh, that's what that is the OnePlus 9 Pro. No other phone. Yeah, no other phone with 120 hertz refresh rate has like been like, oh, I can definitely see what's going on here. I can't see it. So, but the OnePlus 9, for some reason, I was able to see it. But anyway, so the 120 hertz refresh rate is good. I want to take a closer look at the multitasking stuff that they were talking about with the Fold in particular, because they had like really cool, they had the taskbar on the right side that you could presumably use to switch between apps, and then you could drag apps off of that taskbar, kind of like what you can do on the iPad, actually, with like you can drag apps off the taskbar and like put that into a split screen and then drag off another one and put that into a split screen next to the first split screen. I really want to play with that. And if I get the opportunity to play with the Fold 3, which is to say if Samsung does another 100-day return window, then maybe. But anyway, I would really like to play with that because I'm kind of excited about that. But that's mostly software. And I kind of also wonder if that's going to be coming to the Fold 2 and the original Fold. But
yep. I think that Samsung is really starting to play around with the fact that Android apps natively scale based on screen size now. And it's not like the olden days where you had a phone mode and a tablet mode. You had to have an 18:9 mode and a 16:9 mode, right? Like developers these days, and this is fairly new within the last 3 or 4 years, developers now develop apps for every screen size. And I feel like the Fold is just taking advantage of that in like little tiny Samsung-y ways to make it seem like it's this really cool thing that Samsung's doing when it's really it's a really cool thing that Android's doing that Samsung is taking advantage of. Because it's not like, iOS where all the phones are the same size and all the iPads are the same size. So developers only have to develop for those screen sizes, right? Android phones are this big and phones that are like this big, like they're all over the place.
Right.
So I really like that Samsung is doing something with that scaling, with those scaling capabilities.
Totally.
I also like the taskbar. I like that you can put 3 apps on the single icon and tap it and it'll open them up in like in triple.
Oh, I missed that. That is cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They didn't
very duo-like.
Yes, very duo
and wing-like.
It was something I think they spent like maybe 30 seconds talking about it during the presentation, but the person was like, oh yeah, you could put like your 3 favorite apps right here, then you click the button and you get the banner and the 2 side boys, and it's like, nice. That's freaking cool. Like I can't think of a situation where I'd use something like that. I don't think I've ever used 3 applications at the same time, but you know what? I've been on these regular old chocolate bar phones for a decade, right? What do I know? Who knows what I would use such a capability for?
as he holds up the wing,
the last bastion of LG's strength, right there.
Anyway, R.I.P. Wing.
Anyways, digression. Sorry. But I think it's good. They did talk about how they were, they updated a lot of the software to work better with the app scaling and stuff like that. They also talked about the stock apps and some Microsoft apps, I think, that were re-optimized to make better use of the display. The one example they used is like the Messages app, where in the Galaxy Fold
Yes.
2. Yeah, the Galaxy
Yes.
Fold 2, it kept one big screen the whole time, right? And it just
Mhm.
transitioned like a normal app. But now it works in a dual pane mode when you open up the stock Samsung SMS app.
Yeah.
So it's dual panel. You see your conversations all the time. You click on the conversation. It's like a
Small
desktop
correction
chat
there.
app.
That was actually the Google Messages app that they were doing that with.
Oh, was it really?
It was.
I
So
thought
and
that was their
also
stock
the
app.
Google
Mea
Calendar app.
culpa.
So
Mea culpa. I did not know that.
Yeah, unless I'm wrong, but my notes say it was the Google Messages app, and I'm pretty sure I remember that like rather implicitly. So, but anyway, actually, my notes don't say that, but I remember that.
I use Textra, so I don't know what either one of those apps look like on the face of it without
okay.
double checking first. But yeah, no, for sure. Like, but I mean, in either case, though, it doesn't matter, because it's cool. It's still cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially cool if it's Google stuff because everybody uses the Google stuff. No one uses stock apps anyway.
Right, totally. Okay, and then so we should probably move on to the last bit of the last announcement that was made, which is, I don't know, this seems kind of weird. The Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 are like the spiritual successor to the Galaxy Buds Plus, which I'm trying to remember where those fall in the ecosystem of Samsung Buds. I want to say they're before the Live. So, you're already about a year and a half old at that point. But these are like, I kind of think that these are the Samsung equivalent of like the Pixel Bud A's, the Pixel Bud. What were they called? The Pixel Bud, Pixel Bud A. I think it was Pixel Bud A or something like that, wasn't it? The mid range ones that just came out. I don't remember.
Wish I could tell you, but I have almost no interest in wireless earbuds, to be honest. But I mean, I know about these ones because I watched the presentation, but I have no idea did Google actually launch some Pixel Buds recently? Whew.
Yeah, it was a
new a little more often.
It was a new version of the the Pixel Buds. But anyway, I think that these buds that Samsung came out with are kind of like the mid-range equivalent of the Samsung Buds, because I have the Buds Pro, which I did a review on for the podcast, so link in the show notes. But these are like a more affordable version of the Buds Pro. They start at $150, and which is kind of weird because the Buds Pro like are on sale right now for like $170. So it's like it's kind of a weird positioning in the market for these. They come in 4 different colors, and they have the same kind of fit as the Buds Pro in that they still go into the ear canal, but they actually kind of fit inside the circle of your ear, so they're very easy to kind of disappear inside your ear. According to Android Central's review, from Daniel Bader, the touch surfaces on the outside are a little bit more resistant to accidental touches than the Buds Pro. Thank God, because the accidental touches on the Buds Pro were like, honestly, like the thing I hated the most about them, because man, you would just like go to adjust these things and your podcast would turn off or your music would turn off. It'd just be like, dude, come on. But anyway, so so Daniel said that they made some adjustments in that, or some improvements in that area. I'm going to say that again. So Daniel Bader said that they made some improvements in that area, so that was good. But like, it's kind of funny because like the outside, from what it looked like, the outside of the case for all these different buds is white, and you only see the color difference on the inside, which is kind of an Apple move, to be honest. But
for sure.
But anyway, so yeah, they come in 4 fun colors, and they're largely the same as the Buds Pro, but a little bit cheaper. And that was really kind of all I took away from those.
I mean, same for the most part. It didn't seem like there were, of all the things that were talked about at this announcement, these seem the most iterative to me. If that makes sense.
100% agree.
Yeah, they were the most iterative. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like we have to release a Galaxy Buds 2 this year. Like we have to do it. Well, did we make any like huge changes? No, not really. All right, we'll put it at the end of the presentation, right? So everyone's already gone, right? um, but the thing is, like, I mean, the battery life's not half bad. I mean, for true wireless earbuds, right? Obviously, there's better, but there's also much worse.
Oh yeah.
They have that dual speaker system that I think is kind of a neat idea. I've seen some other OEMs tinker around with it. I've seen wired earbuds tinker around with it more than wireless, but they have like the tweeter and then like the separate bass, the separate subwoofer, to try to produce two different sounds. You know, they have all those microphones in there that capture the voice and help cancel out the background noise. So I feel like in those kinds of areas is where it's probably mostly improved, because I have the beans. I don't even remember what the actual names of them are.
The Buds Live is the actual
the Buds
name,
Live.
But yeah.
I have the Buds Live, and the noise canceling on those are a joke. Like I thought it was something that Samsung put on there to make me laugh because it doesn't work.
Well, without isolation, that's going to be really hard to do. So
yeah. Oh, I mean, I don't care. Like I bought them specifically because they didn't seal in my ear and make me feel like my head was gonna like explode. But the thing is, like, these seem like they're comfortable. It seems like Samsung put in some extra tech to try to make them sound better. It seems like they tried to put in some extra tech to make the ANC better. I know a bunch of sites, including Sound Guys, they're going to run these things through their paces to see if anything has improved. So like, I don't want to say sound things are so difficult, right?
Yes, they are.
You know, like it's so it's so subjective,
personal,
from person to person.
Subjective, yeah,
right. So it's like I don't know if these sound better because I don't dislike the way that the lives sound. Like I like the way the Galaxy Buds Live sound.
Yeah.
But it seems like it hits all the buttons technologically speaking. It's just one of those things where, like, if you didn't like the sound of the previous ones, maybe you'll like the sound of this one's.
Right.
And I think the battery life is improved, which I think is the big thing for true wireless earbuds right now, is to try to get those numbers up as fast as humanly possible.
That
might be the reason why they did it, right? Because the battery life, I think, for how small they are, because they are Samsung. Remember saying them during I remember them saying that it's the smallest and lightest earbuds that they've made.
Right. That is true.
So,
yeah.
And if the battery life is, even if it's roughly the same as the previous generation, it's smaller and lighter. So there is like, it's one of those things where they probably didn't announce it correctly, but one of those things, it's still a little bit, like another thing to add to the list of iteratives.
Yeah.
Is it's, the same battery life, but it's also smaller and lighter, which means more comfortable.
Right.
Less ear aching, less ear hurting, pushing and whatever. So it's one of those things where, like, I don't want to write these off because it seems like the obvious thing to do, right? Like, and I don't blame people for doing it either.
That's
like,
what they want you to do.
Write this thing off, and I'd be like, yeah, nope, don't blame you. But I feel like Samsung wouldn't have gone through the effort of announcing these during their biggest event of the year if there wasn't like enough there to maybe talk about it in the appropriate conversation, right? I just think that putting it in the shadow of the Z Flip and the Z Fold was a terrible idea. They should have opened with this. This is an opening act.
Yeah, this is definitely not a closer, but it's all right. I mean, we'll see. And yeah, they are the smallest and lightest, and if they get comparable battery life to the Buds Pro, then I don't think that'll be a problem. So I want to say that the Buds Pro are not the best battery life that I've ever tested, but among the top. Like the best battery life is hands down still these Helm earbuds that I tested that like just keep going forever. But yeah, I've got a couple sets of earbuds that I'm testing right now, so we'll see. But yeah, overall, I'd say it was, like I said, this was the presentation that cured me of ever watching the Samsung presentation ever again, just because I'm kind of done with them. But overall, the stuff that they had to show off was, I would say, largely positive, largely iterative, but largely positive. I would say it was a good event for them. I don't think it's going to help them sell more phones. So I don't think that's going to solve the Xiaomi taking over first place in the world. department. In fact, I kind of wonder. I mean, maybe I have to wonder if Samsung's kind of counting on the Z Flip to kind of make up for like foldable sales, because I still think the Z Fold is too expensive. Regardless of how much they brought it down, regardless of the improvements that they made to it, it's not a $1,700 phone. But the Z Flip, I think you can make a pretty compelling argument as long as you don't care that much about the camera. So, but I mean, like, I think everything else, you can make a pretty solid argument for the Z Flip. But that's just one reviewer's opinion. We'll see if I'm going to see if I can get my hands on them. I'm sure you'll see if you can get your hands on them, and we'll go from there. But for now, I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up. So before we go, Joe, I just want to give you the opportunity to pimp your stuff and let everybody know where they can hear from you, until we hear from you again a year from now for Samsung Unpacked in August of 2022.
Oh, I hope it's not that long. You got my Discord, man. You can get a hold of me.
This is true.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at that Joe Hindy. That's where you're gonna find where I post.
And by the way, from one blue check to another, follow Joe Hindy at that Joe Hindy. And I think honestly, we're probably the two people who are the most flabbergasted by the fact that our Twitter handles have a blue check at the end of it. So
hell yeah,
I'm sorry.
Let's go. Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I always congratulate people with blue check marks because it's such a pain to get one. And then they don't give them to like people who actually deserve them.
Right. Hashtag Jason Howell.
I'll give mine away to somebody. I'll give mine away to Jason Howell. Did he get his yet?
He did not. He got rejected. He was actually actively rejected. So really? I know, like, it was funny because, okay, a little side note here, but like, yeah, I saw him tweet like that he got rejected, when they reopened up everything. And I'm like, and I responded to that. I'm like, well, there go my chances. And like, seriously, 2 days later, they're like, congratulations, you've been verified. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. What the hell are you smoking? It's gotta be random.
Yeah. I'm not important enough for a blue check mark. Oh heavens, no! But all I had to do was send in like a photograph of my driver's license, which worked really well because I got blue checked like 5 years ago, and the address and like information on that's not even close to being relevant anymore. Yeah. I'm an organ donor now.
So Joe Hindy on Twitter.
Right. Follow me on Twitter. Android Apps Weekly every Saturday at noon. Still
Saturday at noon.
And if you guys want to, I put up some thoughts and some breakdowns of the event on YouTube. It's Android Authority's YouTube. If you want to check that out, should be the most recent video at the time this comes out.
Link in the show notes.
The YouTuber is on vacation, so those are the three places you can see my most recent work.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for coming on and kind of carrying the conversation here because. Yeah, you're always a good guest for that. So I appreciate you coming on, and we'll get you on again. I've got Beyond a Doubt going now, so we'll talk about Beyond a Doubt, and we'll get you in for some other segments, and it'll be fun
for sure.
And I'm going to end broadcast, but keep your recording going.